Hey everybody, I'm Mr. Douglas, and we're here for a language dive. Today we're going to look at one sentence from the sample essay to better understand it. And this sentence is going to help us out. It's going to be a model for writing our own thesis statement for this week's essay. Try putting this sentence into your own words. In the new scene I have written for Summer of the Mariposas, modernizing the Puchin, I have maintained many characteristics of the original monster so that it is recognizable, but I have modernized the tale by writing in two Puchins, a brother and sister, to illustrate the theme that things are not always as they appear. Whew, that sentence is a beast. On a scale of 0 to 5, how well do you understand this sentence right now? Wherever you rated yourself at this moment, my hope is that this language dive helps you go as close to a 5 as possible. So here's the sentence, and it's in response to this prompt, the same prompt that we're going to be writing an essay about La Llorona about this week, and the same prompt that you're going to be writing to for the following week about your own narrative that you wrote. What about your monster from Latin American folklore have you kept the same? And what have you modernized in the new scene you have written for Summer of the Mariposas? Why? This is specifically a thesis statement for this person's essay. What does this first chunk tell us? In the new scene I have written for Summer of the Mariposas, modernizing the Puchin. See if you came up with something similar to this. Somebody wrote a new story that fits inside of Summer of the Mariposas. It modernizes this beast, the Puchin. And by modernize, I mean that it takes something old and makes it new. It updates it to our here and now. What word lets us know that the writer's making a comparison here? It's not one that we commonly see. It's not and or also. It's this word, maintained. So maintain means to keep the same. I have kept the same. I have maintained many characteristics of the original monster. What has this person maintained? Similarities between this original monster and the monster that they invented for their story. And why did the writer include the phrase, so that? It's like they're answering a question, why did you keep so many things the same? Why bother? That's boring. They said they did it so that it would be recognizable, that the person reading their story would know that this is the same Puchin that they may have read about before. Here's our second chunk. But I have modernized the tale by writing in two Puchins, a brother and sister. There's a word here that's another transition. What word lets us know that this chunk is a contrast? It's going to be talking about how the two versions of the Puchin are different. It's this small word here, the word but. Now, the word but is really useful in all sorts of sentences. Anytime you want to combine two ideas, you got your first idea, then you put a comma, but, and you give your contrasting idea. Next up, what kind of info follows the word by? Read back over this. Writing in two Puchins, a brother and sister. Well, it's like they're answering the question, how do you do it? How did you modernize that tale? Here's how, they said. I did it by creating two different Puchins, a brother and a sister, who aren't going to act exactly the same. Oh, and when you use the word by, often right afterward, you need an ing word, like writing. The fancy term for this is a gerund. If you want to really impress your English teacher, you would say something like, indubitably, I love the way that the writer used a gerund in that phrase. Okay, your turn. It isn't always easy, comma, but I model care values in class by. You're going to complete the sentence on your handout, And you're going to make sure that what follows the word by is a gerund, an ing word or phrase. So, for example, somebody with no care values would say, "It isn't always easy, but I model care values in class by setting things on fire and calling people poo-poo head." Don't write this down. Write your own. Okay, onward. Last chunk. To illustrate the theme that things are not always as they appear. Let's tackle this word illustrate. In this sense, what does the word illustrate mean? Look for some clues. So you might have said that illustrate means show or demonstrate or lets us know. All those would be correct. And in this final chunk, it starts with the word to. Why does the writer use the word to? Again, it's like it's answering a question. Why create two puchins? Here's why. I did it to, or in order to, illustrate the theme that things are not always as they appear. Okay, here's that whole sentence together. And again, is one beast of a sentence. There's lots of like big tricky words in it as well, but notice that we spent most of our time with some of the tiniest words. Words like so, but, by, and to. These little words are like the glue holding the sentence together, connecting at least 4 different complete sentences all together into this compound sentence. And going through it chunk by chunk, hopefully you understand the sentence better now. Let's reread it one more time and then rate yourself from a 0 to 5. In the new scene I've written for Summer the Mariposas, modernizing the Puchin, I have maintained many characteristics of the original monster so that it is recognizable, but I have modernized the tale by writing in 2 Puchins, a brother and sister, to illustrate the theme that things are not always as they appear. Okay, final thing. Back on your handout, you're going to be writing one more thing. It says, draft a focus statement of your own for the introduction paragraph of the compare contrast essay about La Llorona. So this is the one that's not about Puchin. All of us are going to be writing an essay this week that's got the topic of La Llorona and how the author of Summer of the Mariposas made changes to this myth. Up here, you're going to see the example sentence that we just went through divided into 4 categories: description, compare, contrast, and purpose. In the new scene I have written for Summer of the Mariposas, modernizing the Puchin, I have maintained many characteristics of the original monster so that it is recognizable, but I have modernized the tale by writing in 2 Puchins, a brother and sister, to illustrate the theme that things are not always as they appear. You are going to write down here and here to complete the following sentence that's going to be your thesis for this La Llorona essay. In her depiction of La Llorona in Summer of the Mariposas, Guadalupe Garcia Mercal maintained many characteristics of the original story so that it is recognizable, but modernized the tale by, to illustrate the theme, complete those 2 blanks to finish writing your thesis statement.